Bristol Motor Speedway, a storied track with the nickname America's Night Race, where cars average a speed of over 100 miles per hour on the just over half-mile oval track. The speedway is known as the Last Great Colosseum, and it is where Virginia Tech and Tennessee broke the college football attendance record. With the Reds and Braves announcing that they would be playing a baseball game at the speedway next year, I thought it was the right time to go back and look at the Battle of Bristol, a football game unlike anything else. But before we get into this, if you enjoy college football content like this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, let me know what you want me to cover in the future in the comment section below. To understand how we even got to this game even becoming a thing, we have to go back to 2013. On October 14th, 2013, it was announced by both Tennessee, Virginia Tech, and the track on September 10th, 2016, the two teams would be playing against each other in front of what was expected to be a record crowd for college football. Virginia Tech Athletic Director Jim Weaver told the press, "I full well believe we'll play in front of the largest crowd to ever watch or have watched a football game. That's college and pro." Bristol Motor Speedway General Manager and Executive Vice President Jerry Caldwell said seating capacity for the game would be in the excess of 150,000 people. Bristol Motor Speedway was the perfect place for the two schools to play a neutral site game, as it sits nearly halfway between the campuses of the two schools off Interstate 81. The record the two schools were looking to break had been set only a few weeks before the announcement of the game when Michigan hosted Notre Dame at the Big House in front of 115,109 people. That attendance number was the record recognized by the NCAA. Bristol's proximity to both campuses made this event a rumored possibility since the 90s. Weaver had previously had conversations with former volunteer athletic directors Doug Dickey and Mike Hamilton, but the talks would never end up going anywhere. Back in 1996, Broughton Smith, the chairman and CEO of Speedway Motorsports, reportedly offered Tennessee and Virginia Tech $20 million each to play a game. Tech was interested, but Tennessee did not want to change their schedule that was already in place. Early in 2013, track officials explored the feasibility of hosting a football game, which led to Weaver and Tennessee Athletic Director Dave Hart being approached about making this happen. Weaver said the game is a reality that's as big as anything that's happened in the world of football. Butch Jones spoke about the game saying, "It's a chance and opportunity to be a part of something extremely special that will live with you for a lifetime." While Frank Beamer grew up going to the race at Bristol Speedway, saying it was his favorite sports venue next to Lane Stadium. Caldwell would go on to tell the press, "We jokingly say we're a football stadium on steroids. When you walk into the place, that's what you see. That's what it feels like. You walk in and you're completely surrounded by the stands just like you would be at a football stadium." The game was going to be a second football game the stadium had ever hosted. Back in 1961, the Washington Commanders took on the Philadelphia Eagles in a game that saw 10,000 fans in attendance, which was half the stadium's capacity at the time. Bristol Motor Speedway would host a Sprint Cup race 3 weeks before the game. The morning after the race, 450 truckloads of rock and manufactured sand were used to even out the Speedway's bowl-shaped infield. More than 100,000 square feet of turf were brought in to form the actual field. The company used to bring in the turf was called AstroTurf. AstroTurf had converted NRG Stadium from grass to turf in 4 days back in 2015, and in 2012 they installed turf in the StubHub Center in Los Angeles for the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl in 9 days, so they knew how to handle tight deadlines. For most, this would have been a 3-week process. It took about a week from start to finish to transition the infield into a playable football surface. They then added 5,000 more seats. A driver's meeting room was reconfigured into a locker room for Tennessee. A tire mounting area was used for Virginia Tech's locker room. The coaches' boxes and radio booths were converted from where NASCAR officials generally monitored the races. Technology was installed to allow instant replay, communication between coaches. Caldwell spoke on the transformation saying, "It's a bit surreal. It's been a lot of fun to take people in who haven't seen it. The common word they use is breathtaking, to walk in and see this place completely converted. It feels like a football stadium." Hanging above the football field was Colossus, a 700-ton overhead scoreboard with 4 high-resolution screens that was suspended above the infield. The teams knew the seats and coaches' boxes were going to be a bit far away, so they wanted everyone to bring a ton of binoculars. Both teams planned to have a walkthrough practice in the stadium the Friday before the game, just to get acclimated to the new environment. Butch Jones felt the biggest challenge would be making sure players remained focused on the football and not the atmosphere. That night, Kenny Chesney performed a concert. So let's meet our two teams. Tennessee was led by head coach Butch Jones, who was in his 4th year as head coach at Tennessee. Jones had found success leading Central Michigan to 2 MAC championships and Cincinnati to 2 Big East championships before taking the head coaching job at Tennessee. He rebuilt Tennessee from a 5-7 team in 2013 to a 9-4 team in 2015, and the school had high expectations for the 2016 season, led by star senior quarterback Joshua Dobbs and Derek Barnett at defensive end. Heading into the season, Tennessee was named the favorites to win the SEC East and ended the season as the number 9 team in the nation. It was the first time since 2005 that they were voted to win the Eastern Division. In their previous 18 games, they were 13-5 heading into the game at home in front of over 100,000 fans at Neyland Stadium. Tennessee entered the game as 21-point favorites, but found themselves down by 10 going into halftime, with the score being 13-3. They would come back to tie the game in the 4th quarter, forcing overtime. In overtime, Tennessee faced 3rd and goal from the 2, when Joshua Dobbs attempted to run in a score, then lost control of the ball as he was hit while extending his arm across the goal line. Jalen Hurd recovered the fumble in the end zone. The defense would step up and get a stop, and Tennessee escaped with a win. After the game, Butch Jones told the media, "The first game of the year is always a game of unknowns. We're still developing our identity for the football team. We found a way to win, and at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. But we have to get a lot better. Credit App State too, they're a really good football team." Virginia Tech, on the other hand, was starting a brand new era with head coach Justin Fuente. After 29 seasons as head coach of Virginia Tech, Frank Beamer decided to retire, finishing with a 238, 121-2 record and 7 conference titles at Virginia Tech. After an 11-3 season in 2011, Tech would struggle going 7-6 in 2012, 8-5 in 2013, and 7-6 in both 2014 and 2015. During that period, Virginia Tech won 4 bowl games, but it wasn't the same team that had won double-digit games the previous 8 seasons before that streak. The man chosen to replace the Hall of Fame head coach was Justin Fuente, who had turned Memphis around from a bottom dweller in the Conference USA and American to one of the best teams in the American Conference. The Hokies would be picked to finish 4th in the Coastal Division behind North Carolina, Miami, and Pittsburgh heading into the season, and it was viewed as sort of a transition year from Beamer Ball to Fuente's new setup. They were led by dual-threat quarterback Gerard Evans, a JUCO transfer, and wide receiver Isaiah Ford on the offensive side of the ball, while on defense, Tremaine Edmonds was the star. They opened the season unranked and beat Liberty 36-13 in the season opener at Lane Stadium. Heading into the Battle at Bristol, Tennessee came in as 11-point favorites, who were no longer a top 10 team, having fallen down the polls to 17 after their near-upset win by App State. The first thing that comes to mind with this game is how unreal the atmosphere was for the game. Tennessee would win the coin toss and chose to defer to the second half. Evans had Ford open for a possible touchdown but would underthrow it, and Cameron Sutton would break the pass up. Evans would later have an impressive scramble to make it 4th and manageable on their first drive. They would instead choose to kick a field goal, missing the 47-yard field goal attempt to end a 12-play drive that was 5.5 minutes. The Hokie defense would force a 3-and-out, getting a sack on 3rd down to get the offense the ball back. Virginia Tech would start their second drive with a pop pass to Sam Rogers that went for 30 yards. Evans would make another impressive play on 3rd down later in the drive. They would cap off the drive with the touchdown pass to Rogers to take a 7-0 lead. Tech's defense would continue to dominate Tennessee's offense, forcing another 3-and-out. On the second play of Virginia Tech's 3rd drive, McMillan would take it 69 yards and into the end zone, and it looked like the Hokies were about to run over Tennessee. Jalen Hurd would finally pick up Tennessee's first down of the night with a little over 2 minutes left in the first quarter. Once again, the drive would stall out, and the Volunteer fans started to get worried. At the end of the first quarter, Tennessee had 26 rushing yards to Virginia Tech's 123 rushing yards, while only having 2 passing yards to Virginia Tech's 80 passing yards. They were down by double digits for the second straight week in a row, although they came in as heavy favorites. But things would quickly begin to shift to start the second quarter. On the first play of the second, Virginia Tech would fumble the ball and it would be recovered by the Volunteers on the Hokies' 6-yard line. Dobbs would immediately connect with Juwan Jennings to put the Volunteers on the board as they stopped the bleeding. Tennessee's defense would get another important stop to get their offense the ball back. Josh Dobbs would take it on a quarterback draw for a big game that was followed 2 plays later by a deep passing touchdown to Malone as the Volunteers quickly went 90 yards in just a few plays to tie the game. Virginia Tech would have a horrible punt setting the Volunteers up on the Hokies' 23-yard line. A roughing the passer call on third down would give Tennessee new life on their own 11. They would take a 17-14 lead with the field goal with a little over 5 minutes left in the second quarter. The triple threat run attack between Jalen Hurd, Joshua Dobbs, and Alvin Kamara would start to come alive. Dobbs would take it into the end zone on a quarterback draw to give Tennessee the 24-14 lead. The Volunteers would score 24 unanswered points in the second quarter and receive the ball to start the third quarter. Tennessee would force another fumble on the Hokies, which would be their 6th fumble of the season. Tennessee would miss the field goal, meaning the Hokies dodged a bullet. Joshua Dobbs would have another explosive run before connecting with Alvin Kamara for a 23-yard touchdown a few plays later to give Tennessee a 31-14 lead. Virginia Tech would respond with an explosive drive that would stall inside the 10-yard line as they would only get a field goal to end Tennessee's 31 unanswered points. The rain would begin towards the end of the third quarter. Into the fourth quarter, Tennessee led 31-17, but Dobbs would be picked off on the first play of the fourth. Though they would lose a ton of yards with some late penalties on the play. Evans, Ford, and Rogers would all have big plays on the drive going down the field, but Virginia Tech would fumble once again, giving Tennessee the ball back. It would then have another fumble on Tennessee's punt, making it 4 fumbles on the night. Dobbs would go over 100 rushing yards, taking it into the end zone on an impressive run to give the Volunteers a 38-17 lead. Virginia Tech would have their 5th fumble of the night, and Tennessee would recover it on the Hokies' 4-yard line. The Hokies had 3 straight plays with 3 straight fumbles. John Kelly would score on a 4-yard run to give the Volunteers a 45-17 lead. Finally, with 3:28 left in the game, McMillan would score a Virginia Tech touchdown on an inside run, their first touchdown since the first quarter. Tennessee would run the time off the clock to win the game 45-24, giving Tennessee their 8th straight win for the first time since 1998. Both schools made a bunch of money off this game as they were both paid $4 million and each given $300,000 extra because they sold out the grandstand seats. The official crowd for the game was an NCAA record 156,990 people. The game drew more fans than 41 schools did for the entire 2015 season. The stadium had ordered 25,000 pounds of hot dogs, 16,250 pounds of burgers, and 5,000 turkey legs while serving over 540,000 servings of beer. Tennessee would extend their winning streak to 5 wins, with wins over number 19 Florida and number 25 Georgia before losing to number 8 Texas A&M 45-38 in double overtime. 8 wins before an upset loss against Vanderbilt. They finished the regular season 8-4 and finished second in the SEC East behind Florida. They would beat Nebraska 38-24 in the Music City Bowl to move to 9-4. Virginia Tech would go on a 3-game win streak, climbing into the top 25 with a road win over number 17 North Carolina 34-3. They would be upset by Syracuse but would rebound with another 3-game win streak, finding themselves ranked as high as number 14 in the top 25 rankings. They would proceed to lose to Georgia Tech before beating Notre Dame and Virginia, winning the ACC Coastal where they took on Clemson in the ACC title game. They would lose to Clemson 42-35, but beat Arkansas in the Belk Bowl to finish the year 10-4. The reaction to this game was truly amazing. Justin Fuente spoke on the game saying, "First of all, I think the event in its entirety was fantastic. The atmosphere was incredible, the stadium was beautiful. For what it's worth, I thought it was a beautiful setting and a beautiful arena to play in. The noise during the event was said to have shaken the bleachers from time to time. People felt it was an even bigger spectacle than the national title game." The following week after the game, East Tennessee State and Western Carolina would play each other on the same field in front of a much smaller crowd. After the second game in 2 weeks, Bristol was converted back into a racetrack. They reused the stone base around the infield around the property and rolled up and stored the field for future matchups. Caldwell spoke on the opportunity saying, "Our hope is that this will lead to other things. Motorsports will remain our core business. It's who we are, but we really think this will open us up to new opportunities. Other football games, possibly other sports, or other entertainment events." Since the game was played, Jerry Caldwell has reiterated that they want to do another game at the Speedway. When it came to college football, the stars have not aligned just yet. But the MLB announced last week that they would have the Braves versus the Reds play each other in a baseball game next year. I wonder if they will use some of the same turf from the 2016 game. What do you think? Do you want to see another college football game played at Bristol Speedway? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out one of my other videos YouTube thinks you will love right here. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, remember to embrace the grind.